Laverne from Rose Division and Intro Metro. Yeah, hang on.
Yeah, intro
And
back.
Yosan Tackle from the Indy Metro Division. So it was great to have the young people there, as well as Mike Montrose, who is interested in becoming a club member. So we invited him to the social supper, and I think he had a really good time. So we'll see if he wants to join or not. Roger, you've got some announcements. Why don't you go through those right now?
Okay, thank you, Mary. First off is next Monday, we have our monthly luncheon at Ioza's Garden of Italy. That's from 11:30 to 1. It's located on South Meridian Street by just south of Shapiro's. If you'd like to join us, we've got about 8 going right now, but it varies between 8 and 15 people per week. If you'd like to go, just let me know so I can make sure we've got a seat for everybody. And we'd love to have you. Best Italian food in town, by the way. And then on a couple of other items regarding new members, there's another new person we're quoting, Nicholas Bennett. Steve Farrell is setting up a time to get with him. He's expressed interest, and he sounds like a younger person, so that's kind of interesting and hopeful. Another thing we have going is SLPs, which is our service leadership programs with high schools, middle schools, college, and grade schools. We have two key clubs, I guess, right now. Three key clubs and 2 builders clubs. And there's a request by 2 schools to start a builders club, which I think is fascinating and very exciting. So we're looking for folks that might want to step in and help coordinate, be a liaison between us and that school and that group. It doesn't take a lot of time, but it gets you active with the kids. And it's fun, it's neat. I do 2 of them.
Roger, do you remember which schools are interested in having a club?
Well, I know the name of one of them is TC Howell Middle School. It's a new school. They're opening this fall over on Emerson and East Washington Street.
Okay.
The other one is close to Harshman Middle School, but I don't know the name of that one yet. But the girl who's helping us run that one has been approached by somebody else in that area. So I said, sure, we'd love to talk to them. But the other thing we've got to accomplish is finding somebody within our club to help work with them. So I hope we can find some people down the road. Let's see, we talked about the membership team. We've got a recruitment and retention team, and we're planning on meeting hopefully next week or 2 to discuss where we're at and where we're going and how to proceed with this. Riley Hospital, to change the subjects, looking for folks to transport children to Riley for needed services. And this is an on-off thing. Might be a kid once a week in the mornings, 1 day a week, or 1 afternoon to pick them up and take them back home. If anybody's interested in this, please send me or Kelly a note and we'll get you connected, because I think this is a valuable service. And it's something that doesn't take a lot of time if we're close, and most of the kids are close to the facility anyway. Along with Riley, there's a comfort cart, which our group, along with other Kiwanis clubs, are helping to support. And that's by being there and pushing the cart 4 hours a day, every 6 weeks, which is not too bad of a schedule. So maybe we can put a team together with enough of us. It takes 2 to do the cart. They're also looking for donations for the cart. You can also find that information at www. How many W's is in that? .indkiw.org. That's NIY.org. I think that's really what I've got. Oh, there's a signature project, well, I'll call it competition each year among Kiwanis International. We haven't done any major service projects, but as Laura mentioned to me, Abe Lincoln might be a project we could submit. I don't know if we've ever done that. Wendy, if any of you guys would know if we ever submitted that for a signature project from our club,
I do not believe it ever has been submitted as such.
but that's a beautiful program that's been going for a long time. So we need to discuss that and see if that's something we can do. And,
Roger, that was submitted many years ago for the award.
oh, was it?
Mhm.
Okay. Can you tell me when? And don't have to tell me now, but
For the
I
signature
don't have
project
access
award?
to that info right now. I'm happy
what's that,
to
Laura?
report back at the
Yeah,
board
this is
meeting.
Laura. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kelly, did you say that we submitted it for the signature project award?
Yeah,
We
that was done maybe 5 to 7 years ago. I don't know off the top
Could it
of
be
my head.
the major emphasis maybe? Because I think the signature project contest, at least for Kiwanis International, is a new one. It's from 2021, I think was the first year that they did it.
We'll
Yeah,
investigate that.
I'll check on that. I'll report
Yeah,
back
we'll
at the
investigate.
board meeting. Yeah, that's not anything I can look up right now.
That's great. It'd be a great opportunity for us. So that's all I've got, Mary. Thank you.
Thank you. Wendy, could you share where we are with Abe Lincoln?
Sure, happy to. Well, this Saturday, we have the privilege of interviewing 21 students who will be coming in on Saturday, starting at 8 a.m. Committee members will arrive at 7. We'll be at the Lacey School of Business on Butler's campus to talk to each of the students to find out more about them as we then start the hard work of determining which 4 will receive one of the larger monetary scholarships. We do have space for a Kiwanian or spouse or friend of a Kiwanian to help us out in what we call the green room. We need someone to help just welcome the students and make them feel at home. Bill Dubois, Bill, I have to admit, I want to call you Dubois every time, but Dubois will be there for the morning. It'd be great if someone could join him and then help out in the afternoon for the handful of students that will be there. Kelly will also be there taking some photographs. So we've got the pictures of the students for the event itself, which is going to be at Primo's on February 9th. And that's going to start at 11:30. Individual tickets are $35. We welcome anyone who wants to be a table sponsor, be a liaison with the students, or actually be a sponsor for the program themselves or itself. So if you have any questions about how to be a sponsor, please reach out to me or Kelly. We hope to see a lot of our members and many guests at the event in February. Thanks.
Thank you, Wendy. Appreciate that. So with that program, we've recognized 862 students since 1976 for their courage and perseverance and provided over $1.2 million in scholarships. So it's a phenomenal program. If you can volunteer on Saturday in the green room for maybe 4 hours in the afternoon, that would really be helping us out a lot. On January 18th, we will have the Perfect Attendance, Legion of Honor, and Ruby K Awards, as well as marking the contributions of our treasured members, Chick Bourne, Mike Kenny, Dallas Moorhead, and Bill Minette at the candle lighting service in their honor. On the slide, can you bring the slide up? You'll see upcoming programs for the spring. I don't know if you can get that up there, Kelly, or not. So on January 25th.
My computer crashed. Sorry, Mary.
Okay. On January, so we'll be at the Columbia Club on January 25th, February 22nd, and March 7th. And then we'll be on Zoom on February 1st, February 29th, and March 21st. So spread the word, special leap day program about the Holcomb Observatory and Planetarium, and the total eclipse. That should be really important for us this year because, as you know, April 8th, we're going to have a total eclipse. So you'll find more details on those programs on the website, in the calendar. So please look at that website. So the recipients of the 2024 grants provided by Kiwanis Foundation will be hand delivering $5,000 checks to the organizations in the coming weeks, and we invite them to meetings later in the year to tell us more about their project and the impact that they have with the money that they are receiving from us. So in the message area, the chat area, you'll see what those 10 recipients are. And I'd also like to congratulate Jay Brill and his wife for receiving the Range Line Pioneer Award. Only 100 citizens have received this honor, which is Carmel's equivalent to the state's Sagamore of the Wabash. There is an article about that in the Current, which is the Carmel newsletter. Trina, I'm going to hand this over to you so you can introduce our speaker and the rest of the program.
Wonderful. I don't think I have Dennis's bio in front of me, so I will let him speak all about himself. But we are very excited that Indy is going to play host to the NIT tournament following the conference play this season. It'll be in historic Hinkle Fieldhouse. And so without further ado, Dennis, thank you so much for joining us today and for being part of this and for sharing a vision of what's about to happen.
Sure. I'm glad to be here. And thank Graham for arranging this. He's been a good friend, and I'm a Butler alum, so he's been a good friend through Butler as well. So let me share my, can somebody allow me to share a screen?
You should have co-host privileges, Dennis.
So as we talked about, the NIT's located here this year, which is a second time it's been located outside of Madison Square Garden in New York City. I can walk through how all that happened, but I'll start with a little bit of history about the NIT, which is kind of interesting. It was started in 1938, and it was a consortium of writers. And back then, college football was kind of the king of college sports, not unlike what it is today, but college basketball was nothing like it is today either. It was started by a New York-based sports writers organization, and it's similar to how the Heisman Trophy started. In 1940, it was taken over by an independent committee, and the actual ownership of the tournament ended up going to 6 New York-based colleges and universities: NYU, Wagner, Manhattan, St. John's. Can't name the other 2 off the top of my head, but it's interesting, and that'll come back full circle here in a minute when I tell you about the evolution of the tournament. Then what I found interesting was that it kind of became a bit of a rivalry after the 1940s and after World War II. Prior to that, teams could play in both tournaments. So you'd have, and in a couple of years, you had teams that won both tournaments. And then during World War II, as a lot of colleges had players on deferments, they decided to play a champions game where the NCAA winner played the NIT winner. And the proceeds were for Red Cross and to buy war bonds. So it's kind of interesting how they played into that. All these games obviously were at Madison Square Garden in New York, and basketball at that time was very much East Coast centered. And so it made sense then to have the tournament at Madison Square Garden. An interesting fact, and we think about NIL and how money's taken over college sports. It really, if you look back in history, I highlight 1949 and really 1950, where there was a significant point shaving scandal that impacted the tournament, and it involved both Kentucky and the City College of New York players. I'd encourage you to take some time to spend a few minutes reading about it, because it kind of for me anyway, kind of said, I'm not sure all that much has changed in college basketball from the 1950s to where we are today. I think Kentucky actually was suspended and not able to play in a couple of years for the tournament. So again, we've seen that recently, and we're seeing, and it really hasn't changed since the midpoint of the century. So really the NIT then became a secondary tournament as things evolved through the 60s and 70s, and the things that really impacted it were the expansion of the NCAA field. And then in the early 80s, when the basketball rights fees from NBC and CBS kind of became a bidding war, and how the teams were able to benefit from that, and particularly the conferences. And as you may or may not know, when teams make the NCAA tournament, the conferences are actually what collects the money, and each conference has perhaps a slightly different formula on how they split that. They usually do it based on units. The money is spread over a 6-year period. It's not paid up front. So it's important to each team, but it's important to why these super conferences are being formed, because even a secondary team in a big conference will do better financially than a very good team in a lesser conference. So the economics of this, I find kind of interesting. As I said, the tournament was played in the Garden since 1938. In 2020, it was canceled because of COVID. In 21, we played it at dual sites in North Texas, which I participated in. And then in 22, it was back at the Garden, which Xavier won. And then last year, that was the last year it was in Madison Square Garden. And primarily for economic reasons, they've decided to move it out of New York because it's just an expensive venue to lease, and then expensive for the teams to get there. First year it was in Las Vegas because they were readily available. And then they awarded 24 to Hinkle. The awards for 25 through 28 are in process, but we intend to chase that to keep it here at Hinkle. On a personal note, what I've recommended to my friends at the NCAA is that we ought to tie the history of the tournament to historic venues and change it over the country, so that you could use the Palestra in Philly, you could use Hinkle here in Indy, and you could probably use the University of Washington's field house, which are all kind of 1920s era, very historic venues. They probably won't listen to me, but I thought it was a pretty good idea. So in 2000, kind of getting back to the full circle, how the NCAA ended up owning the NIT. In 2005, there was a lawsuit between the NIT and the NCAA, and the NIT made an antitrust claim against the tournament, saying, "Hey, you guys you're expanding your field and you're making it more difficult and for folks to choose the NIT, because they made some rules that said if you don't take your NCAA bid and you take an NIT bid, which that happened with Marquette in the late 90s, then we're not going to let you in the tournament next year." So they kind of used their monopolistic position to try to bully the NIT. The NIT sued them. There was an out-of-court settlement of about $55 million in 2005 that, in exchange for the payment, then the 6 New York-based schools gave the NCAA the rights to the NIT. And since then, it's been pretty smooth in terms of how the two tournaments integrate together. A couple changes, and this one's pretty controversial in terms of how teams qualify for the NIT. Historically, if you were say in the MAC and you won your regular season, had the best regular season record, but lost in your conference tournament, the conference tournament champ goes to the NCAA, and then you would automatically be qualified to go to the NIT if you were the regular season champ. And it happened pretty frequently. I think last year we had 7 AQs get into the NIT. It was changed this year, and it was really driven by trying to drive more attention to the NIT tournament and drive more revenue. And it was candidly driven a lot by the television arrangement with ESPN. So this year, the AQs have been shifted away from the regular season champ to the 6 power conferences that I've listed there. and it's who has the highest net rating. And the net rating is the formula that the NCAA uses, and it's a big component of how the NCAA field is determined. So if you're in the Big Ten and you don't get into the NCAA tournament, they're going to take the 2 teams with the highest net ratings, and those teams will be automatic qualifiers for the NIT, and they will, as important, host a first-round game. So you'll see a lot more bigger brand names from big conferences in the tournament this year. So Hinkle's the first time it's obviously been hosted at Hinkle. Butler's participated in NIT a number of times. We've hosted some games in the past, in the recent format. Some of the things that we're going to hit on to make the tournament more interesting, is particularly the local folks, is we're going to have some folks that were on the first IHSAA women's final champion, which was in 1976. It just so happens to be somebody, I went to school at Warsaw High, and that's who the champion was. So I was able to get a hold of Judy Warren, who was Miss Basketball that year, and we're going to have her attend. We also are going to have several members of the Milan 54 state championship team, which is based on the Hoosiers movie was based on. Angelo Pizzo is going to attend the final game, and we're going to have some Hoosier cast members there as well. So we're trying to broaden the appeal to folks that have some affinity for that part of the history of the Hinkle. What's a big change this year, and it's a little bit confusing, but historically the women's NIT tournament has been owned privately and has not been affiliated with the NCAA. And so the NCAA decided this year to create a women's version of the NIT. They can't call it the women's NIT because they don't own that trademark. But it is going to be run through the NCAA. Jess Carmack is the person on the staff that runs it. And it'll be a similar 32-team format, and the finals will be played at Hinkle on Monday and Wednesday of tournament week. So again, the field will be selected similar to how the men's NIT field is selected. So in terms of how it's organized locally and how there might be some interest from volunteers to assist, the game is coordinated here with 3 institutions, the Indiana Sports Corporation, which that's how my engagement started as a board member. And they'll handle the tournament site rep program, which I've been involved in for a number of years, where we travel and go to the campus sites prior to them coming to Hinkle. We handle all the game operations, security, things like that in association with Butler's staff. We've been meeting about every 2 weeks since November to try to pull this together and do things to make the teams feel welcome. Athlete hospitality is a big part of what we do with that. And the local organizing committee, which is why I'm here and I chair that group, we're involved with ticket sales to local groups, how we support that, sponsorship sales, and then, as I indicated, the team and institution hospitality. We have about 9 people on that committee, and one of which is Graham, who's done a great job helping us with the sponsorship sales. Here's the selection committee for the NIT, and it's typically constituted of retired coaches. 5 of these guys are retired coaches, and then the rest are typically athletic administrators for universities at the Division I level. The staff team, Alex Mortellaro is the lead on this. Alex has been with the NCAA a number of years. He's my primary contact. I'm a Butler guy, and he was the manager on the Villanova national championship team. So there's some issues we have with each other, but we get along pretty well other than that. Susan Boffman's been with the Sports Corp for a long time, and she's the primary liaison with NCAA. The selection committee here is for the WBIT, and this is obviously a first-time committee for them. So they're going to mirror their process off of ours. The group typically, in my participation on it as an observer, it becomes more of a seeding question than qualification. The qualification usually comes down to, tough choices on 4 or 5 teams, but most of it's related to seeding and hosting and those kind of issues. And so we'll be supporting the WBIT team in order to help them through how that's been done in the past with the NIT. So last slide is the what's and wins. The WBIT is played on Monday, April 1 and Wednesday, April 3rd. Those games will be played during the afternoon. Everything's going to be broadcast on ESPN or ESPN2, which in the vernacular is a linear broadcast. And that's meaningful because a lot of times women's games are only streamed. So we think we'll have some pretty significant viewership depending on who we have. All session tickets for both the men and the women are $40. So that includes 3 games. We'll have a few selected seating, but most of it will be general admission. And again, it's $40 for both the men and the women. The men play on Tuesday night at 7:30 and 9, and then the final game's on at 7:30 on Thursday, April 4th. I put a link there, and I'm happy to email this to somebody if they'd want to. I think somebody has it, and that's the link to how to purchase tickets. So that's all I have. I'm happy to answer questions about anything related to the tournament.
Great, thank you. We appreciate it. Open for questions.
I've got one.
Go ahead, Roger.
Dennis, how many teams are actually involved in the tournament for the NIT?
There's 32 selected. They'll play 16. The first round, the second round, and the quarterfinals are played on campus at the site of the higher seed.
Okay, so there's 4 teams coming to Indianapolis.
4 teams come to Indianapolis.
Okay.
Well, 8, 4 men, 4 women.
Yeah, thank you.
You mentioned that you left Madison Square Garden as a result of cost. Obviously, the legacy, the historic legacy of New York and Madison Square Garden probably has some weight there. Do you see going back there at all?
You know, to my knowledge, I don't. I think that the tournament, it's interesting, and I can go into more detail, but the ESPN acquires most of the championship broadcasting for all sports other than men's basketball. And so they just signed an extension of a current deal that's about $115 million a year for 8 years. And that allows them to broadcast everything from, men's and women's track and field to baseball finals. And that sounds like a lot of money, but it's a lot of cost as it relates to the broadcast time. The NIT is included in that package. It's not included in the CBS package for the March Madness licensing fees. So it does create some financial constraints on that. And obviously New York's a pretty expensive place to get to, and a pretty expensive place in terms of travel costs. So my opinion is it's not likely to be. I don't work for the NCAA, but I'm just sharing what I've been told as we go through this.
Other questions from anyone?
Maybe I missed it, Dennis. Are you part of the selection committee for the teams?
Nope, I'm not, thankfully. I assist Mort as he provides data. And then my main role is to lead the local organizing committee here and to organize the site reps. And it's kind of interesting. On Sunday night, we are the last group to know who's in our field because we get that from the big tournament. And then we have to go through, and last year, for example, we had 2 teams turn down the NIT. We had North Carolina turned down, and we had Dayton turned down. Dayton turned down primarily for injury. And then once we know the field, then we have to determine if they have venue access, whether they can play a Tuesday game or a Wednesday game. We have a lot of data about that early on. And then my job is to assist with that and then assign a volunteer site rep to go to a site. So on Sunday evening about 9 or 10, a site rep will get a call and say, hey, you're going to go to St. Mary's in Moraga, California, and you need to be there Monday afternoon because the game's on Tuesday. So it's a pretty heavy logistics lift, getting all the site reps in place. Making sure that the NIT branding is in place, that we have all the NIT sponsors in place as opposed to the local sponsors since we play on campus. So it's a pretty big lift from that Saturday really before Selection Sunday through that first week as we get everybody in place.
Where
I can
did
tell
the
you some
site,
good stories.
where
Sounds
did
like
the site reps
exciting
come
couple of
from?
days. I'm sorry.
Site reps for the NIT are a combination of local volunteers we've used with the Sports Corp, which that's how I got involved. And then we have some folks that are either current or former athletics administrators we have a guy from Buffalo, New York, that worked for the University of Buffalo. He's in the private sector now. But people like that have stayed engaged with the NCAA and just said, hey, I'd like to do this.
Nice. Thank you. So you said you had good stories. Tell us the story.
I'll give you one. I had, I don't know if you recall, I'm trying to remember the year. Maybe it was probably 2018, maybe. I got assigned, IU was supposed to have a home game because they were a higher seed. And it was spring break and they had a rough year. And they decided they were going to forego playing at home, mostly I think because they weren't going to have a lot of folks show up because of spring break and they had a rough year. So they elected to stay in the tournament and travel to Georgia Tech. I want to say they were favored, 8 to 10 point favorite. And this was, I go to the game. Tom Crean's the head coach. Couldn't have been nicer. Spent time with me as a site rep and went to the practices, talked to him for 20 minutes. And IU ends up losing by some amount. It wasn't a significantly close game. And I go you have to go to the press conference, and you just felt terrible for the guy because you knew it was probably his last game. And the first question that Zach Osterman says is, Tom, do you think this is your last game at IU? So it was a little awkward. So, but a lot of people have had differing opinions about Coach Crean, but I got to tell you, off the court, you couldn't find a nicer guy.
Are there ways that we can help the LOC build excitement around this? I know we really get dialed up when we host Final Fours or even first round NCAA tournament games. Like, this is a great set of games. What can we do to help?
Yeah, I think the main thing is if you could, share this ticket link. We're going to be doing more earned media like this. We'll be doing some radio spots and things like that. Just being able to help. Our target is to try to sell 6,000 seats. That's going to be largely driven by which teams obviously make the Final Four. If we get, I'm not trying. I like IU. Don't get me wrong. I got a degree from there, but I think they might be heading our way. So that could be a big deal in terms of attendance. If we got, Dayton, we get somebody like that, that'll really drive the bus. But between now and April, just trying to get the word out that this is actually happening here. And we've sold, right now, I just got the report this morning, we've sold about 750 tickets pre-sale, which is pretty good for not knowing, A, a lot of people not knowing it's here, and B, not knowing who the teams are. So we're pretty pleased with where we stand. And I think $40 is a bargain to see 3 really good Division I basketball teams. I would add to that too, sorry, if there is a volunteer interest, and this won't be a significant lift, but I would encourage folks that want to get engaged in all events like this to go to the Indiana Sports Corp website and register for their volunteer database. And even you can reach out to me if there's a specific thing you'd like to participate in. I can get you connected to the right people. But for example, we're probably in need of 100-ish volunteers still for the NBA All-Star game in a month. And so you could peruse that, their website, and you can kind of get some interesting alternative. Another thing we're hosting for the Sports Corp is we've got the USA Olympic swimming qualifier in the Lucas Oil Stadium in June. It's the first time we've ever hosted it in a football stadium. Heretofore, it's been in basketball arenas in Omaha, and we'll need a lot of volunteers for that. So I would encourage everybody to if you have some time and would enjoy something like that, to register on their volunteer database.
Thank you for plugging swimming. I'm on their LOC, and
Good, that's great. I didn't know
we
that.
have 9 days of competition, 11 days of activations. So we will need all the volunteer hands. So get practice at the All-Star game, get practiced at NIT, and then come excel at Olympic trials.
I love it.
A quick question, Dennis, about your previous employment. Did you work at an architectural firm years ago?
I did not. I've been a real estate developer for about 30-ish plus years. I worked at Browning for a long time. A lot of people get that confused with Browning Day. I work for Browning Investments, the development firm. I do the real estate stuff and investment, capital investment for Shield Sexton now.
Okay, thank you. I was in that industry a while, and I thought I recognized your name, and it was from Browning.
That's probably the different Browning. So,
No, it was Browning Investments.
yep.
Yeah. All right, thank you.
Well, I
Looking
appreciate,
forward to this. This looks like a great event.
yeah, I think it's going to be fabulous.
I live about 6 blocks away from Butler.
Oh, do you?
I want to try to get there to those games.
That'd be great. No, I think it'll be fun. So
Sounds like fun, yeah.
Let me, a question, about half of your, for NIT will come from the power conferences. What's the effect on your smaller conference where the season champion would automatically get a berth? Would that affect what, 3 or 4 different conferences, or?
I would say that's probably that's a good estimate. We'd looked at it as if this would have happened to the field last year, and I can't recall exactly. They did an analysis of it, and I think you're in the ballpark of how many people that would have impacted. But to obviously, candidly, there's been a lot of pushback from the mid-majors on this, and Julie Rowe-Lash, who's the commissioner of the Horizon League, which is based here in Indy, and I should add that their tournament, their conference tournament, is the last week of March at the Coliseum, and that's very good basketball. That conference includes Oakland, Wright State, Cleveland State, Northern Kentucky, Robert Morris, University of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, University of Wisconsin, Green Bay, IUPUI, Purdue, Fort Wayne. You get some really good basketball in that league, and they are impacted negatively by this because a second qualifier for a conference like that in terms of financial impact is a big deal. Now, they haven't had a second qualifier in probably 8 or 9 years, but if by the chance they could get it, it would be a big deal. So,
yeah.
Any other questions for Dennis?
and I appreciate the time, everybody, and enjoyed getting to know what you guys do. It's interesting.
Well, we're just happy that you had the time to share with us. This is going to be an exciting event here for all of us to bring our families and come to the tournaments and just have a great time with basketball in Indiana. We would like to give a donation in your name to 100 Cameras for 100 Kids. Their mission is to provide 100 deserving kids with cameras each year, fostering creativity, self-expression, and the development of important life skills through the lens of a camera. They can tell their stories, document their journeys, and explore the world around them in an entirely different way. So thank you very much, Dennis. And now it's time for a dad joke. And this one was one of my dads. Are you ready? I opened the window and influenza. Yeah, I know, it's really hokey. Okay, so next week we're going to be at the Columbia Club, and with that, we are adjourned. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for a great meeting.